I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon.
When it comes to time trialing and how do I pace like a time trial, it's a question that I get asked on a daily basis, you know, and I've seen like thousands of people and everyone will kind of have like this different analogy. The key part is everyone's got a percentage of FTP that they kind of want to sustain, you know, like within like a time trial. So if we take like, I don't know, I want to ride this 10-mile time trial, I want to average 300 watts, okay? The next key part to that course is then, okay, so what are the demands of this course? Is it out and back? Is it hilly? And then which way is the wind direction going to, you know, which way is the wind coming from? Because this is always a key part. So nowadays we get things like My Windsock, Best Bikes, but it can actually tell you on a given day what that wind direction is going to be. How I've always done it is I kind of go out on the course and I'm always aware. I warm up on the, you know, do my warm up and I find out which way the wind's blowing. And what does that mean for us? It means this is where we're going to make like our effort into the time trial. And it's always a lot easier if it's headwind out, tailwind back, rather than being tailwind out, headwind back. And the reason for that is because if it's headwind, then we know that power is the most critical part. So if I'm doing this 10-mile time trial, then I know that I'm going to push a lot more power. So if we're wanting to average like 300, then I would always say, well, into that headwind section, we probably want to push probably like in the realm of like 310, 320. And the reason for that is always into the headwind, you want to generate like, it's generating like more force. And then when we talk about like your position on the bike, I always kind of work on like this 3 position rule. It's kind of like you've got get me to the finish, a much more sustainable power position, and then a much more aerodynamic position. And what you'll always find is that going into the headwind, you're having to make more effort that you probably can't sustain like this really aggressive position. You know, you're going to close off your hip angle, your shoulders are going to be burning, and it's just not sustainable for most athletes to be able to do it for the full duration of the course. So you've always got to go right into the headwind, more effort. But then when we come to like the tailwind sections, that's when we utilize like aerodynamics a lot more, you know. And what we mean by that way is, you know, like you've had an expert bike fit, someone will have probably explained this to you. If not, then you need to come here and I'll work out what you need. But it's kind of like shoulder positioning and then head position. And each individual is going to need something a little bit different. And you just have to work out what that is. But if we're going into this tailwind, what's going to happen is if you're going fast enough, you're just generally not going to have a gear that's like big enough for you to kind of generate like power. And that's when we really want to be locking into the position so we can cut through well, we're obviously cutting through the air, but again, we're able to save energy and we're going to go a lot quicker. But where it does get complicated is kind of, if you've got like fast tailwind sections and then you're going downhill, then even if you've got a gear of say 60-11 and you might find your optimal cadence is like 85, then you're just not going to have a gear that's like big enough to generate like the force. So what I always work on like with my athletes is I always do like surges in pace, and we do, I call it like it's almost like a 10-free drill where you pedal for 10 seconds and then you freewheel for 3 to 5 seconds realistically. But when you do that, you want to be holding this super aero position. And then the idea then is, soon as we hit like that flat section of road, you can utilize like aerodynamic, like your best friend really. Another key part is obviously when it comes to climbing, especially if it's very undulating, it's like, well, how do I ride like those undulations? What you need to be able to do is, and where most people make the mistake is, they get to the crest of the hill and then it's like, oh, I've made it. But a great time trialist never does that. What they do is they get to the crest, they then lay that power back on and they'll get like the speed back up. But when you climb in the hill, you almost, say if we're averaging 300, then generally you're probably going to be around like 350 to 370 realm. And what you need to do is you kind of up the cadence, so you know, like you're really spinning the gear. Then when you get to the crest, you actually get the speed back up, and then that's when you have like your recovery. And generally then you go into doing like those surges of pace. And that's going to apply to whether it's a time trial of 10 miles or it's a 50-mile time trial, 100-mile time trial. Even like a triathlon, like you've always got to be aware of like wind direction. And the only time that even pacing will ever come into, and that's generally if we get like a crosswind section, then you'd opt for like even pacing in that situation. But that's the art of like time trialing and triathlon, you know, like there's no differentiation, there's no separation around like the two. Obviously the biggest part about triathlon is just the fact that it's over a longer duration in terms of miles, but like the principles of how you hold the position, this medium one is probably where we're going to apply like 80% of our race to, and that's when training the body to adapt to the setup it really applies. You know, like you really want to be course and event specific, and then you adapt your body to train. And I think that's where most athletes actually go wrong. They just think so much about the training, but they never break down like, you know, the course profile, how they can hold like the position on the bike. And it's a combination of all those elements that will make you into a much better triathlete, time trialist. So top tips.